septic pumps go bad. So,
Yeah.
no, but they can't. Howdy. So
Well, it's
where,
like, why you're not gonna get drunk with me? Come on.
I didn't know what you, I didn't know.
He wants to be in the back too.
I don't know who's where.
I'm a woman. How are you?
Good, how you doing? Is this sort of?
Are they gonna go see? Where are they seeing?
That's hopefully for this.
This?
That, hopefully, this should broadcast at least that.
Okay, so that's what he's.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Anticipating this.
Question is.
I think, if we, okay, so if I plug in, I have both, these quick charging units in the so that you see similar what happened.
Viewers will have a hard time discerning.
What? So I say rather than get that screen, so I just said, let me try these bigger walls. To make sure we have a bigger one, that's a sole picture. I think this is.
That's the case, then. $6 million.
That is my plan.
Oh, no.
I guess I should have read that. email.
Tuesday, wasn't it?
It works, yeah. Yeah, and also, is Mr. Shirley still officially a member? I don't think he's ever attended.
This is the. Yeah, no, I think that was the initial. I believe we're headed towards 1 mile,
Okay.
hence your.
And we'll,
Yeah.
okay.
Do you want me to bring it down there?
Well, I was wondering, because Dan's gonna. Okay, good.
All right.
Hello.
Is your laptop on?
I think it might be best just to stick with one mic and run it around. Because you hear the weird
Echo.
echo.
Good evening. Yeah.
Now this, the laptop.
This is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, much better. Thank you. Thank you. And I'd like to welcome everyone to the public forum of June 1st. We're here to talk about Yarmouth Road construction project. For those of you that have attended before, this is like our third or fourth time that we've asked residents to come in and talk to us about it. At the last meeting, we provided some draft plans for everyone to take a look at. And at the same time, we started setting up one-on-one meetings with property owners. And I think about 35 out of the 54 have been, which is a good amount. Thanks, Doug. We also got some really good feedback from everyone in that meeting about some things that you would like to have seen changed in the plans. And just to give a brief history, we all know that Yarmouth Road is actually a state-owned road. The DOT did their last work up there. They stopped at Weeks Hill back in the 70s, and they just haven't come back. So we've gotten a little impatient waiting for them to come fix the road. And we came up with a plan a few years back to revise the South Gray TIF in order for us to use that money that was pooling in that TIF towards this Yarmouth Road project. Through that process, we started engaging Goral Palmer to work with us on doing a survey. We've done some ledge mapping. We started doing some title work, loose title work, identifying property owners, and then of course working on the draft plans. We do need to do the project in conjunction with the DOT, and at the last meeting we were talking about the town leading the project and the DOT partnering with us. You're going to hear later in the meeting that has changed a little bit due to the costs, and we'll go over that. But the first thing that we want to do is make sure that we provide an update on the actual plans. So we were able to take a lot of the feedback that was received and incorporate it into the plans. And so I'm going to turn this over to Will, and he's going to go over some of the big changes in the plan from the last time we presented them to you. And if you have any questions as you go along, just kind of raise your hand, and then we'll try to answer them for you.
Thank you. My name is Will Haskell.
We are working on the design of this project.
For feels like a number of years now, but anyway,
We've got the plan up on the screen, and just so everybody knows,
we did provide a new updated long scroll plan that shows the project from beginning to end, basically from Main Street all the way up over the hill to it's roughly around 3,500 feet or so. So up on the screen here, just to orient everyone, we've got Main Street over on this side. If everybody can see my cursor, this is Yarmouth Road here, and we've got Brown Street coming in here, and Hancock Street headed down to the library here. So I'm going to start at the Main Street end and kind of work my way up. I'm not going to go over everything in detail again. I'm just going to update everybody some of the changes that were made since the last public forum. So in this section from Main Street to Brown Street intersection, I think at the last public forum, we actually had shown the sidewalk on the north side of the street. We shifted that to the south side and added a small esplanade in there, roughly about 3 feet. So an esplanade is,
Basically, grass strip between the curb and the sidewalk.
and then we have a 5-foot sidewalk. So you can see the sidewalk running along here, the south side of Yarmouth Road. And I believe there were several folks who lived in this area in here that expressed interest in terms of having the sidewalk on that side of the road. So that really was the primary change in there. We may have added a few catch basins up in the vicinity of the church. The church has a couple roof drains that come down and discharge into the roadway off several sections of the roof that we are now picking up and connecting into the storm drain system as well. And this section of storm drain here up by the church actually discharges to an outlet right in here. So as we move up to Brown Street, again, we are looking at reconfiguring and realigning the Brown Street intersection. So as everybody knows, the intersection now comes in at basically a Y, which makes it very challenging in terms of pulling in and out of there, but also makes it very convenient for vehicles coming down the hill to take the corner onto Brown Street very quickly. So we're proposing to tee in the Brown Street intersection, so it comes in right across from the Hancock Street intersection. So we'll tee that in there, make that a stop intersection, and then we'll also put a new crosswalk at this location here that will also have flashing beacons that you can push a button and it will turn on the flashing beacons to notify drivers that pedestrians crossing the road there. We also have a crosswalk here across Hancock Street. So we basically have to have crosswalks wherever we cross a street with a sidewalk. Slide the plan a little bit here, move up to the next section. So we'll talk a little bit about from Brown Street to Beehive Drive. So Beehive Drive is right here. So at the last meeting, there was a fair amount of discussion and concern about eliminating the existing sidewalk on the north side of the street that basically runs from Brown Street up to, I believe it's 19 Yarmouth Road. So we've got that back in this drawing. It's not in the same location because of the realigned intersection here. So you can see that we've added the sidewalk back along the north side of the road up to 19 Yarmouth Road, which is right here. And again, so on that side, there really isn't any, we're not putting in an esplanade on that side. The sidewalk will be right behind the curb. On the south side, we're continuing with the sidewalk up the south side of Yarmouth Road. And starting at the Hancock Street intersection, we're increasing the esplanade width from 3 feet to 5 feet. So we're widening out the green strip in between the curb line and the sidewalk. And then we've got the 5-foot sidewalk, as you can see, running up. And it basically stays on that side of the road all the way up to the end, kind of Hillcrest Drive. But still proposing a 60-foot wide right-of-way. If you remember from the last time, this section of Yarmouth Road from somewhere in here, but not even, I don't know if I can see exactly, right here, actually. The defined right-of-way ends and becomes what's called a wrought right-of-way, which is basically, it's not a defined width. It really is just kind of the width of the utilized portion of the road and associated ditches. So we're proposing to define a right-of-way of 60 feet up through here, except for a couple minor locations where 60 feet would put it in the front of the house, like right at this location here, just beyond Beehive. But anyway, one of the biggest changes that we've made through this section up here is drainage. So we've
Added a significant amount of drainage. Catch basins.
Yeah, if you hold it outward, maybe, there you go.
let's try this.
Try this.
So we've added a number of additional catch basins in here. And as we get up to the steeper part of the hill, we're even adding more catch basins because of some of the drainage issues that we heard about at the last meeting. So, and we're adding it to both sides of the road. So not only do we have enclosed drainage and catch basins on the south side, we've added curbing and catch basins on the north side as well. And I know there was a fair amount of discussion at the last meeting about why we're not adding a sidewalk onto the north side. Probably the primary reason is cost, but it is important to note that the proposed section of the road, basically all the way along through here, is 11-foot travel lanes and 3-foot shoulders. So there will be a 3-foot shoulder added to the north side of the road and the south side of the road in conjunction with the new sidewalk on the south side. So it will be somewhat better in terms of adding a shoulder in there, whereas now what you really have is a drop off into a ditch. So.
Question, so instead of,
Hold on. They can't hear you.
I'm at 25 Yarmouth Road. So instead of putting the grass median on the other side of the road, why not put the sidewalk against the curb on both sides? This way there you can have a sidewalk, because again, there's still no way for the people on the other side of the road to get across that road. No matter what you do, you have to cross the road to get to a sidewalk when you have 3/4 of a sidewalk already up. It doesn't make sense why you'd put a full sidewalk on the other side and not continue where you have 3/4 of a sidewalk.
In order for us to do, and we'll talk about it later, but this plan came in at $7.7 million with one sidewalk. Sidewalks, the sidewalk that we did on Short Shaker was a lot shorter than that. It's $500,000. So we have a certain amount of money that we can spend, and it doesn't mean that the sidewalk won't be added later. But the south side is the side that we've decided to go with for the most usage because of the apartment buildings and other side streets on the lower half. And as Will stated, they're putting we've added the stormwater all the way up. So we will not have this open ditch anymore, and you'll have the 3-foot shoulder. So there is at least area there that is far safer than it is today. It's just not going to be everything that we want.
yeah, but when you did Shaker, you added sidewalks on both sides of their road completely. And now you're doing one side on this road, and you're like, the other side kind of gets a, oh, well, like.
Yeah, I mean, we would, quite frankly,
Yeah.
quite frankly, I think every residential neighborhood would want to have sidewalks everywhere. But the reality is we only have so much funding. And the sidewalks on Shaker Road, we actually just rebuilt them, and then we extended the sidewalk, but we couldn't extend both sides of that sidewalk either. One side goes further down to Chipman Farms and it ends at the other side.
Right, but instead of
because-
extending it all the way up to 70, why don't you just extend it equally to a certain point? And then when you
Yeah.
continue the project, you continue both sides of the sidewalk.
Yeah, we've decided that this is more prudent because it addresses more.
More safety for that side.
Just a couple other things relative to that on the cost. So the cost of the sidewalk on the north side, it's more than just paving a sidewalk. So there's a fair amount of grade change in a number of locations as you go up that hill on that north side. And I don't know because we haven't drawn the sidewalk in there and designed it, but there's going to be a number of locations along that north side where we would likely have to build retaining walls, which is going to add us another significant amount of cost to the project. So the right of way that we're proposing here would allow the extension of a sidewalk on the north side in the future if the town decides to do that in the future and comes up with the money to do that in the future. So it's possible to do it. It's just that the town they made the decision basically that, okay, we want to make a start on this anyway, and we're going to do it, and we're going to put a sidewalk on one side, and we'll leave that option open. So if there is a need or there's a desire in the future, then they have the ability to do that.
Been anything addressed as far as how the north side will get to the south side sidewalk? Has there been anything addressed as how the north side of the street would get to the south side of the street sidewalk?
Presently, we haven't talked about any additional, sorry. And one, just to be clear with what Will was stating, the current plans using the south side because of that grade issue, we are getting more linear feet of sidewalk than we would if we were to do it just stumped up both sides, but.
So there has been some discussion of potentially putting a crosswalk across Yarmouth Road at Beehive Drive. So it's possible that we can put one there. We haven't done the full analysis on that to determine if it's safe enough to do that. There really isn't another location to put a crosswalk across Yarmouth Road until you get up and over the crest of the hill. It's just not safe to put a crosswalk in there. It's called a mid-block crosswalk. And because of the site distances and a variety of things, you really just can't put another crosswalk there safely. So it's very challenging to add other crosswalks on this section of road because of the geometrics of the road and the horizontal curves and the vertical. So we've looked at the possibility of potentially doing something at Beehive Drive, but really anywhere else until you get up essentially to Hillcrest, you really don't have the ability to put in another crosswalk there.
So the town assumes that crossing the road and the light crossing the road is going to cost less than putting in sidewalks on both sides of the road. So the town assumes that crossing the road and having a life cross the road and play chicken there is going to cost less than putting in a sidewalk on both sides of the road up to a certain extent. Because you have kids playing there that are going to cross that road, whether it's to walk down and get ice cream in the summertime. There's constantly people on the side of that road that take that chance.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, is right now, there's nothing there. There's no sidewalks going up, there's no shoulders, there's nothing. So this, excuse me, I'm gonna just finish my statement. This project is to improve the safety of the road. It substantially improves the safety of the road. It does not solve all of the safety issues of the road. And so with a 3-foot paved shoulder and the elimination of the ditch, people who are walking on that side of the road will be substantially safer than they are right now. It doesn't give them a sidewalk, it doesn't. And with curbing, as Will said, and with the shoulder, it's going to give them a far safer ability to walk down that side of the road. As I said, we do not have unlimited funds and we cannot put sidewalks on both sides of the road everywhere. It's just not possible. So this is what we feel that this gives us the most sidewalk for the amount of money that we're able to spend. And we don't even have the funding fully secured yet for this plan. So it's possible that the scope could be reduced. We hope not, but it's possible.
All right. So I think the big change in this section is really drainage. And that's what we heard at the last meeting was a number of people expressed their concerns about the drainage at their driveways, especially in the wintertime when we have frozen conditions. So adding the catch basins and
You're sitting, yeah.
the enclosed drainage system should help that out significantly. The other thing that we've shown on this plan going up the hill is, and you probably don't pay as close attention to catch basins as I do, but
keep going. So,
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, so we've added double catch basin grates. So we've done some modeling of this system and single catch basin grates don't collect enough water running down the curb line. So we've added double catch basin grates to help collect the drainage in the roadway system. Really just on the steeper part of the hill, down in the flat area, and then up as we get over the crest of the hill, we go back to single catch basin grates. So I'm gonna,
I have a question.
sure.
So what does it entitle adding a catch basin? Because looking at where we're located and this sample, it looks like there's a proposed catch basin across from our driveway. So does that go in the road? Or does that go near our driveway? Like what would that entail to put that there?
So I believe this is your 25, correct, right here? So this is your driveway? So you have a catch basin just downhill of your driveway. And then there's a catch basin across the road, and they're connected together. And they ultimately go into a drain pipe.
Existing or proposed?
Both are proposed.
Okay.
There really aren't any, other than at 19. There really aren't any catch basins on this section of road right now.
What would it entail to put those in?
Uh,
Are they located, are they going to be for driveway or are they in the road?
They're in the road. When they construct those, well, all the construction of this project is going to be an impact to the road. I mean, there's going to be impacts to traffic when this construction is done because it's a full depth reconstruction project. But they will basically dig a big hole that's going to be roughly 8 to 10 feet in diameter and however deep the catch basin is. And then they're going to set that precast structure down in the hole. And ultimately what you'll see when it's all done is a typical catch basin grate at the surface of the road,
Right where the curve is.
right at the curb line.
So is it like a dip? Like, I don't.
It might dip slightly, but it's really just, the slope of the road is coming down and it's going to, it basically has a grate that the water flows
storm
into.
drain.
Yeah, it's a storm drain, it's a catch basin. I don't know what he's drawing yet.
So the catch, Doug Webster, planning director. So what happens is the catch basins are located right where the paved 3-foot shoulder meets the curb. 11-foot travel lane, 11-foot travel lane. So that's the catch basin right there. And then your driveway would go slightly up like that.
But the catch basin is not in front of your driveway though. It's off to the side.
How does that alleviate water running across our hill?
It stays in the pitch.
I don't know that it will change the dynamics in your driveway, but
Instead of running, pulling at the end of your driveway or running into the road, it's going to go right into the storm line.
Well, it doesn't pool it in the driveway, it comes across the driveway,
It
where the
runs
water
across.
comes across, it's just the whole
It's just
driveway
a
right
river.
out. It's a
Yeah.
river and it freezes there, and then when it thaws, it's cracked the pavement to about that thick right now.
Right, but right now you have a ditch with a culvert that goes under your driveway.
No, that comes down the dirt, and then where the dirt is, the driveway is paved. There's nothing underneath the driveway there, it's washing the concrete right out.
So it runs down the driveway, across the driveway, it freezes in the winter, and then come the spring, it thaws out and it's washed the dirt out. The driveway sits up approximately 4 inches off the dirt. And then where the driveway is, it's eating that right out where the road is now.
Yeah, there's no cold.
let me just ask this question. Are you talking about water running across the end of your driveway? That's coming from the road into your driveway?
where the road is to the driveway? There's about 4 feet from where the end of the road is to where the driveway is. The water runs down there so bad that it's eaten almost the first 4 feet of the driveway. And where the road is, it's eaten the road approximately about 4 inches of the road thick. I have all the chunks in the driveway now.
So, yeah, I think what's happening above their driveway then?
Right. So right now, there's a ditch that runs down the north side of the road. Most driveways, and I'd have to look at my existing. Most of the driveways uphill of yours have culverts underneath the end of their driveway as it takes off from the road. So we're installing a number of catch basins. So here's your driveway. There's a catch basin on the downhill side. There's a catch basin a little bit further up the hill on the uphill side, and then there's catch basins continuing up the hill. So those catch basins, as you go up the hill, are going to take the majority of the water that you might be seeing now coming down to your driveway and crossing over your driveway, and it's going to get the water into that enclosed drainage system and pipe it to the outlet directly, rather than having that water run down the gravel shoulder or the ditch and impact your driveway. Can I say that it's going to eliminate all the water coming to your driveway? I can't say that, but it's going to eliminate a significant amount of it.
So related, Kathy Tombrelli, 9 Yarmouth Road, related to that question, since it's a total rebuild of the road, I'm assuming that you'll come back and pave the end of the driveways and grade them correctly?
Yes.
So each driveway you can see it here on this plan. So again, I believe this is your driveway here at 25. Your driveway is currently gravel?
No,
It's paved? Okay. So we will be reconstructing this paved apron on your driveway. And this is what we're estimating that will, the repavement that will happen will be right in here. Some of them are longer. It really depends on the slope of your driveway. So if your driveway is really steep in one direction or another off the road, the amount that gets reconstructed is usually a little bit longer. If it meets current grade requirements, we can reconstruct a shorter piece of that. So where we really see that issue is on the side with the sidewalk, because when the sidewalk crosses a driveway, the cross slope of the sidewalk can be a maximum of 2%. And if you have a really steep driveway, we have to flatten that driveway out where the sidewalk is, and then we have to steepen it back up one way or the other on the back side of the sidewalk. So if you look at these plans or look at the scroll plan out there, you'll likely see, across the road from your driveway, let's take this driveway here at, what is that, 36? The amount that we're reconstructing there goes out beyond the 60-foot right-of-way line, because we have to reconstruct that amount to actually get the slopes to work. And there's specific criteria that we have to meet in terms of how steep or flat those driveways can be. So it varies depending on which driveway and how steep those driveways are, and in which direction they go, up or down. The other thing that we've added relative to drainage, and you can see it in a couple spots, is what I'll call field inlet catch basins. So again, this is 29 Yarmouth here. I believe they do have a culvert underneath their driveway, an existing 18-inch culvert. That would be eliminated because of the new enclosed drainage system. But we're also adding what we call as a field inlet on the downhill side of their driveway to pick up drainage and get it into the enclosed storm drain system. And we've got a number of those in different locations based on what we've seen out there for topography and existing conditions. So we've got another one on the other side of the road, for example, here at 36. We've got a field inlet at the right-of-way line here to help pick up some of that drainage. This one up here, again, 36, there's a lot of drainage that comes off the downhill side of the Apple Tree Village parking lot. There's actually an underdrain that was constructed at one point in time across the yard here that discharges to the existing ditch. So we're actually picking that underdrain up and connecting it into our storm drain system. So we've really looked pretty hard at the drainage issues that we heard about at the last meeting and tried to resolve a lot of those issues with the drainage system that we've designed here. I'm going to move up the hill a little bit here. And I'm going to move up to Hillcrest. If I can find it. So really, from Hillcrest up to the end of the project, again, it was really all about drainage. So we've added more catch basins, we've added some additional curbing, and again, tried to focus on the drainage issues that we heard about at the last meeting. So I think that's about all I had to say in terms of the improvements from the last meeting.
That was a thank you. Appreciate that. Are there any other questions about the changes?
I have two more questions, not necessarily about the changes, but the changes as far as plans themselves. How did having to resurvey?
My question is, how did having to survey and redo all the catch basins and all that affect the current budget as far as the surveying and price costs?
Yeah. That's a great segue. Thank you very much. That's my next part. Two things happened with this. We added the stormwater to the second side, which was a significant cost. Stormwater is more expensive than sidewalks sometimes, I guess, depending on the ledge or the grade. So that added significant costs. It also created a situation where the water department had planned on leaving one of their pipes, their 12-inch pipes, and adding or replacing a second 12-inch pipe and extending it, or replacing a 10-inch pipe further up. There were like 3 little pieces they had to do. Because we need to put stormwater on that north side, we're taking their space. So now they have to add a 16-inch pipe, a new one from the beginning of Main Street all the way up to the top. And I think the one that extends beyond the project is going to stay. So that added significant costs from the water district standpoint by about $1 million, $2 million, more than that, a couple million. The biggest problem there too is that pipe is in very short supply, and it can take up to a year to obtain the pipe that they need because everybody is doing construction right now. So the total price when we looked at this, and these are just estimates, and they don't include some of the traffic calming measures that we want to do, canopy work, tree work, some of these other things are not in there yet. So these are the basics. Brought the cost to about 7.7 million. And our TIF budget is 4. And so then we also have the MDOT, the current path we were on, the town was going to take the lead and do what is called an MPI, which is a municipal partnership initiative program with the DOT. They actually capped that at 625,000, which obviously in our minds is not enough money considering this is a state road. They are looking at increasing their max. They've talked about 850. They've talked about moving that up to $1 million, but that has not happened. And so right now it would be 625. As we have discussed in other meetings and with you guys, we are also in the process of redoing Main Street. And that is an even larger project than Yarmouth Road. That is a DOT-led project with the town partnering with them. We did the village visioning. If you guys participated in that, we had did that this past summer, and we came up with a village plan. which is posted on our website. And I encourage anyone on the Yarmouth Road to look at that plan too, because it kind of talks about how Yarmouth Road will connect to Main Street and what we would like to see Main Street look like. So we're in negotiations with the DOT on that because they're working on that project goes from the New Gloucester town line all the way through the big intersection over to the main turnpike interchange. So it is a significantly larger project than just even Yarmouth Road, which is huge. And that involves stormwater, rebuilding the road, sidewalks, the same kind of avenue. So through our discussions with the DOT, they have given us another alternative, which is to package the two roads together and try to go for a federal raise grant. And that would, the cap on the raise grant is, I think, $35 million or thereabouts. So what would happen is the federal government would kick in 80% of the money for the project. The town would have to kick in 10. And the DOT would have to kick in 10. So that could drop our total cost for both roads down to about $3.5 million. And the DOT would kick in 3.5, and the federal government would pay for the rest. So it's a huge possibility, very financially good possibility for us. But two things: there are a lot of people going for raise grants. There is a 1-year cycle. And what we would need to do is try to get our plans together. The Yarmouth Road plans and the Main Street plans would have to be fully engineered and finalized by the end of this year in order for us to apply for the next round of raise grants, which is spring 2024. We have, as a council, talked about it and feel like we have to make a run at it, like try to get that raise grant if we can. If we don't get the raise grant, you can always apply again, but you just keep adding years. So we're a little concerned about that. There's no guarantees that we'll get it, and there's no guarantees from what the DOT has told us. But what they've said to us is if we package it and we make a good application, and if we don't get the money, they're going to work with us to find a way to get the projects done. They may not look exactly the way they look when we propose them for the raise grant, but they're committed to making sure that we get both projects done. If we move forward, one of the big stipulations the council has with the DOT is we want a memorandum of understanding with them so that we have some guarantees on what's going to be in the Yarmouth Road project. So we've done a tremendous amount of work. We have what we feel are very good plans. And some of the things that we want to make sure is in the memorandum of understanding is that they are only going to go after 60-foot right of way and not the 66, which is normally what they like to get. They have already acknowledged to us in meetings that they recognize this road's too narrow for that, but we want it in writing. We want to make sure that they're going to give us stormwater on both sides of the road. We want to make sure they're going to level up Brown Street with Yarmouth Road, square it up. So there are a list of items that we've put together and we've submitted it to the DOT to put in the memorandum of understanding, and we're waiting for a response from them. So that would be first step. We would come to an agreement on the memorandum of understanding, and that would be something that everyone would be able to see. You'll be able to see that memorandum of understanding and see what's in there. Once we have that, then we would need to push forward with getting the plans finalized by the end of the year. Then we would go for the application in the spring. And I think they said we would find out about whether or not we got the raise grant in the summer towards, by September usually. So then we would know if we do get the raise grant, then the earliest construction would probably be 2028. And that's actually a quick turnaround, if you can believe it. Will's right. We've been working on this for a really long time, but even if we went on it on our own, we still have to partner with the DOT. And we have to get into the construction cycle. So chances are high we wouldn't be starting any sooner than that. So I know it's hard to wait. The other important thing to understand is the right of way. So we've been talking to you, meeting with you and having some conversations about the right of way. That actual work, if the town were to proceed with the project on our own, we would just keep going down that road with you. Because we're going after federal money, there's environmental impact. What is the initial? NEPA. which we have to comply with if we use federal money. And so we cannot do any deed work or easement work. We have to hold until we find out if we get the grant money, because if you do it in advance, then you can illegal. Yeah, it's not usable. So that's the only difference would be instead of us trying to proceed between now and spring, talking with people and trying to get actual easements done, that's all going to have to be on hold until we find out whether we get the grant or not. So that's one big change that you guys all need to be aware of. That doesn't mean that we won't continue to have conversations with anyone that we haven't had an opportunity to speak with, because we really want to know what your problems are specifically to your address, just to make sure that we're aware of them and that gets communicated. Questions? That was a lot of information. This will be behind you and then.
Thank you. You talked about the traffic calming measures. And I know that some of those are structural. And I'm wondering, well, first of all, those are not going to be part of this proposal, right? I'm guessing they will not, and this application and everything. And so I'm wondering if any of those that are non-structural could be done sooner because they're a lot cheaper. I'm thinking about the signs that say your speed is, they are probably under $1,000 to put in, there and things like that is not a big solution, but it would help. I mean, we all drive in places say you're going too fast, please slow down North Yarmouth along there. Can't we just get some of those? It doesn't have to be part of the big picture to be helpful.
We'll still talk about traffic calming measures when we do the engineering plans with the DOT. The total budget for the raised grant is $35 million. So that's for Main Street and Yarmouth together though. And at first I was like, wow, that's a lot. And they were like, no, that'll probably just be enough. Yeah, it's expensive. I don't know if this is working anymore, but I think you guys can hear me, right? Some of the other things, you're right. Some of them are structural, bump outs, crosswalks, that flashing crosswalk, that's considered traffic calming. Some of it's, even if you can believe it, it's called friction, but even putting trees in like the esplanades or areas that just slow people down because they feel like something's getting narrower. Narrowing the lanes down to 11 feet is a traffic calming measure. We have spoken to the DOT. They have a new program where they have these traffic calming packages, and they can apply them to specific road conditions. And we actually were talking to, I can't think of his last name, but Dakota, who is the gentleman who is the bike ped person for MDOT. And we were talking to him about the Libby Hill Road project, which we have applied for an earmark for. And that actually did get selected to be brought to the next phase. So fingers crossed on that one too. But he was the one who brought those traffic calming packages up to us. And he felt that on Shaker Road approach and Libby Hill Road was a good area for them to apply. And that is basically some of what you talked about. It's signage and striping and reducing this, stepping down the speed is what they call it. We have asked about that up on the hill because, and we recently did ask them to look at the speed limit on that stretch of Yarmouth beyond our project. And unfortunately, they denied our request to reduce the speed limit. The DOT, just so everyone's aware, the DOT is the only one who sets speed limits. The town can't do that. There is a bill before the legislature to try to loosen that up a little bit, to give us a little bit more authority, especially on our own little local roads. But that, I don't know the status of that right offhand. But they have also committed to us, once Yarmouth and Main Street as part of those big projects are done, and we put sidewalks and on-street parking on Main Street and some of these other traffic calming measures, that they will reduce the speed in the village area. So there is a possibility, the flashing signs, the council has actually talked about that repeatedly and trying to come up with the right ones that work. And we do have one that we can move around. I think you've probably seen it. And anyone who hasn't seen it, anyone who would like to have that on their roads, they can just give us a call, or the Public Works Department, and they have a little list in the summertime. And the data shows that if you leave those signs for more than a couple of weeks, people start to ignore them. So that's what they do. They put it on a road for a week or two, and then they move it to a different road. So we do have one of those.
She's got her hand up again, then back.
What I'm thinking of,
You're thinking the ones that mount.
the one that's on, I guess it's Route 9 at the end of Yarmouth Road Way in North Yarmouth. That's right by that little shopping center. That's been there a long, long, long time. And it's where the speed goes from 35 to 30. I do want to say thank you for finding the speed limit 30 sign that goes after the speed is reducing sign. But I don't even think it needs to be this whole speed reduction thing. If people would only go 30, we'd have fewer people dead, and we could happen a bunch more times before all of this rolls out.
I can agree with you more. I live on Route 26. So yeah, it's posted 40. That never happens.
Thank you very much.
So I just had a question. I've been in touch with Maine DOT as far as where the road meets the driveway and the road crumbling there, because like I said, it's significant from where the driveway and the road transitions. They had told me originally that they didn't want to fix it because the road was going to be redone by 2025. So I'm curious because something has to be done by then, because there'll be no road left at the end of my driveway to pull in and out. It'd be like driving over a curb. How does that affect the plans as far as now and fixing those driveways?
I want to piggyback on that.
To add to it, we're kind of wondering how much of a difference, because it was earlier stated that how they finish the end of the driveways would depend on the grade. Once they take it down to gravel, because that's what they want to do, correct? How far are they going to build it back up? Is that known yet?
Actually, well, I think talking about the fact that we're going to level the road down a little bit, I don't think there's a lot you could do to change the road, but I can speak from Route 26. Every time they pave that, the road gets a little higher and higher. My driveway stays the same.
Right.
Same length. And unfortunately, because they're not reconstructing Route 26, they just keep overlaying it. There's not a lot they do there. They just kind of put the apron. I would say that I would definitely call them again, because we've had that update and they know we're going for the raise grant. They're the ones who gave us the 2028, because they've actually successfully applied for and gotten a couple of raise grants. And so you're kind of in line. We're going to have to get at the back of the line. So I would recommend that you reach out to them again to speak to them about your driveway, because it is Yarmouth Road. I don't think that would be our public works.
So to answer the other part of your question, at your driveway location, the actual finished elevation of the road, once the project is done, at least based on the design that we have today, is actually going to be slightly lower than what it is today. So we're actually lowering the surface of the road by a few inches there in the future. So when we say this is a reconstruction project, what will happen is that they will do what we call box cut the road. So they strip the pavement off, they dig out existing gravel, and then they put back a certain depth of gravel and then repave over the top of that. We've made slight changes to the surface of the road, the elevation of the surface road at different locations along this to try and improve things. In front of your driveway, it just happens that we're cutting that down slightly. We're also doing that up towards the top of the hill. There's quite a crest on that hill right now. We can't do a lot there because of people's driveways on either side, but we've actually taken that down about a foot or so up at the top of the hill to try and improve sight distance for vehicles coming in either direction there, so they can actually see a little bit further as they're coming up or coming down that hill, and hopefully improve safety somewhat by doing that. But in front of your driveway, again, we're dropping it 3-4 inches or so.
These details show up on well, they show up on maybe perhaps on the plans that you were handed out when you came in, but the full-size plans out there in the hallway, they're 1 inch to 20 feet. And so you've got the road up above, and then you've got the drainage and both the existing and the proposed road profile underneath, and they're right on top of each other. So if you find your property, you just drop straight down, if you will, on the plans, and that shows the existing road elevation and the proposed elevation, as well as drainage.
My first question is, you were talking about how it was revamped after finding all the drainage issues and everything. Why wasn't that discovered while the plans were initially being drawn up? So you would actually know what you were getting into as far as the drainage issues? Why was it discovered after? And the second part of my question is, well, I guess there's actually three. The second part to that is, if you realized, okay, this is going to add X amount of dollars, why not shorten the plan, like take away from it to try and stay within the cost? And what does all this do to our taxes?
The first one is we actually had to, we have found, rather than getting everybody in a room saying, hey, what do you want? Having some draft plans that you can take a look at. So when is a lot easier, because then people can point to and show things out. And then getting you in here so that we could sign you up for one-on-one meetings to learn your specific issues. So at the very beginning, the council just simply gave Will some general perimeters to draw up some plans. And so we said, we definitely need stormwater on the south side. Go ahead and put that on the plan as well as the sidewalks, and giving him some perimeters so that he could do those draft plans, so we could get you in here and have you take a look at it. So that's all that was for the first thing. As far as the
People that work for the town that have stated that it's been aware there's some drainage issues there.
oh yeah, I think we're well aware. No, I think we were well aware of that, but we need the opportunity for our planning staff to speak to you individually, one-on-one. We don't want to hear that there's a drainage issue. We want to be able to speak to you specifically. Like for you, you have water running across the end of your driveway. For other people, it may be further up, or it may be coming across the road. And so I think it was just a matter of making the time to sit down and meet with individual people to find out what their concerns were. But as far as your taxes go, if the raise grant is actually obtained, then we will be spending less, because our match is only $3.5 million instead of 7.7 million. And that is for both Main Street and Yarmouth, and that will allow us, because we have TIF money. TIF money is money that's already built into the rate, so that money is pooling separately into an account, and it's already something we're paying. And so when you set up a TIF district, you assign what you're saving that money for, and you're saving it for Yarmouth Road. So if we get the raise grant, that'll allow us to use the additional, like we have 4 million now. So if we only need to use 3.5 for the match, then you have another 500,000 for us to potentially do some of the traffic calming and the streetscape, which isn't in the plan quite yet, or other things on Main Street. It'll depend, because it's both roads. If we don't get the raise grant and we have to come up with another funding model, the easiest thing for the council to do is to present that to the voters, because it is your tax dollars. So if it's 7.7 and we have 4, or 4.5 or 4.8 with the MDOT's contribution, then the remaining difference would likely have to be bonded. And that would be something that would be on the ballot for the voters to decide. And the residents will decide whether that's worth the money or not, quite frankly. If they decide not to, then the council will have a couple options. They say they put a $3.5 million bond on the ballot and it fails. They could go back to the plans, reduce it again, and put a $2 million bond out to see if that passes. If that fails again, then maybe we just stick to the 4.5 million that we have and do what we can. And that's where this, we have to draw a line somewhere because we just don't have endless funding. The funding is tax dollars. So
basically, if it goes to vote.
Basically, if it has to go to a vote, then the majority of the town of Gray decides whether or not my taxes go up based on what they want. And they're not even living where it's affected.
that's democracy. Yes, that's what it is for all our budget items. We currently, right now, we've gone for a earmark grant for Libby Hill Road to redo Libby Hill Road and do sidewalks. Part of that matching money for the grant is in this year's budget. So people may or may not support this year's budget. If they don't, then that road matching funds might be gone. So that's just how it is. We're a community and we all have to decide what we feel is, we personally feel, and I think a lot of people do, if you were at the Village Visioning, we had over 200 people come out. They all did not live on Yarmouth Road. And if you look at those plans and you look at Main Street, you look at the comp plan, which was, we had 500 or more residents come out and help us do the comp plan. They want to see these changes in the village. And these are people who live all across the town. So if I don't live on Yarmouth Road, and I would support this project as a resident because I drive on Yarmouth Road and I like spending time in the village and I want it to be safer. So hopefully people would see it that way, but it always comes down to the voters who decide. I think I got all the questions. Yeah.
Did you have a question?
I do.
Marion Malio, I'm at 46 Yarmouth Road. Our driveway, the whole front of the road abutting the front of our driveway and our property is crumbling. It's just crumbling. It's not going to last another 5 years, which is ridiculous. I thought we were going to start next year, but I mean, that would have been nice ideally, but the road is just falling apart. All the sand's coming onto my property from the road. We have no culvert out there anymore to take the water away. It's just a mess. Is there anything we could do? And then my second question is about enforcement. Why can't we get a sheriff or that would show the state how bad the road is? Because I had a semi truck come down the hill today, not long before this meeting, and he had to be going 50 miles an hour. There is no way that truck could have stopped if somebody jumped out in front of him.
That is a DOT road, and we have asked them, what's going to happen if we don't move forward with the Yarmouth Road. Unfortunately, it is considered a priority 3 road, and MDOT does their budgeting priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. And so they don't have unlimited funds either. They have to go to the state, and that comes out of your state income taxes or federal money. And so what they basically told us for Yarmouth Road is if we do nothing, we don't do the project at all, they will continue just to come and do overlay paving forever. And so that's not a solution. And so what I would suggest for you is if you have a problem with your individual is to continue to just keep contacting them because it is their road and our public works, I think we fill potholes. Not really, not outside. Yeah. So I think that if it's on the edge of you need to contact them and just keep making their voices heard. Because I'll tell you, we get in rooms with the DOT and we tell them this is going on and our residents have had it and all of that. But there's nothing more than having all of those residents constantly contacting them directly because that noise makes a difference. I'm sorry, I forgot what your other question was.
The other one was about.
Oh, the enforcement. Okay, so enforcement is, again, taxpayer money. We have 2 deputies who work 40 hours a week. So that means we have 1 deputy, 80 hours a week. And if you do the math, that's not full 24-hour coverage. We, just 1 second, just so that people can hear you. We do have a 3rd deputy. We actually pay for the resource officer who works for the school during the school year to come work for us for the summer. So we get a little bit more enforcement. The sheriff's department, because we're in their jurisdiction, that doesn't mean they don't have yet another deputy, but that deputy is assigned 3 communities. And so you do have that 4th deputy, but, and some towns do, like Standish, I think, contract for like 9 deputies. They cost about $160,000 a year plus their car. And so it is something that we in the time that I've been on the council, we increased it from 1 deputy to 2. And so, but it does cost taxpayer money to do that.
I had another question that I hadn't heard brought up yet. So we're at 25 Yarmouth. There is like a rock wall there where you'd be going past there. Beyond that rock wall, there is the Japanese knotweed there. How does that come into play if you affect that? Because that grows all along the back there.
I actually think that came up in the last public forum, was the invasive species. And there's,
Is it behind the wall or in front of the wall?
It's behind that wall, but it's only from the side of where the road meets that culvert there. It's only about, where the ditch is, it's only probably about 3 feet behind that ditch is where it starts growing. It grows all the way back. So you would be digging into that and getting into that.
Maybe, but anyway, I just wanted to say we do have a specification in the current plans and specs that talks about invasive species. So we have several other, there actually are several locations along this section of road that have Japanese knotweed. Another one is down by the church where the drainage outfall is. There's a significant amount of it there. So we are putting a spec into the bid book that talks about eradication of those in those areas, and it's going to need to be talked about with DOT, I guess, at this point, if the RAISE grant goes forward. But the eradication is challenging because you may only be getting into a very small piece of that. I know the piece down by the church is huge. It's well beyond the right of way, and you probably wouldn't be impacting all of that. So the question then becomes does the town want to pay the contractor to deal with that entire area of invasive species, or just the piece that they impact, which isn't going to fix anything because it's just going to come back. So it's a very challenging problem. A very challenging problem to fix. The other challenge with invasive species is it's not just a one and done thing. You can't just come in and get rid of it in one shot. It usually requires multiple applications or multiple things. So you may have to come in and cut it at a specific time of year, and you have to come back and apply an herbicide, or you have to do something else. And it's something that has to happen over multiple years. I've been involved with another one down in Falmouth for the road that was they wanted to get their subdivision road accepted by the town. One of the things the town has in their road acceptance program is that you have to get rid of any invasive species that are within the right of way. It was a 2-year process to have a licensed herbicide specialist to come in here and deal with those invasive species to get rid of those. And it took 2 years to do that. And you actually had to prove that you were going to get rid of it. So it's a very challenging problem. We really haven't gotten into those, pardon the pun, weeds here as part of this project yet, other than we do have a specification that we've added, but.
And that problem is everywhere. So it's at, Wilkes Beach, Libby Hill parking lot. It's on this vault trail. And so it's very challenging.
So just to carry on to what you just said about that invasive species, I know that with the knotweed, if you disturb it, especially when it's flowering, it floats in the air and spreads rapidly. We have it from like the backyard to the ball field. How is that going to affect everybody else in that area with it being disturbed and carrying on to other areas? How would we control that?
I think the most important part is, Will said, is for us to have that conversation with the DOT and to put that in. So once the construction plans are done and we have funding in place, then you put it out to bid. And that's what Will's kind of talking about, is that bid book will list the requirements for that contractor. So in that scenario, we could potentially state that the invasive species, at least in the construction zone, must be eradicated, and potentially talk about the timing. When they do this construction, they have talked to us. One of the other benefits for packaging this is going to be a mess. I mean, if you think about the traffic that comes down Yarmouth Road and the traffic that comes through Main Street, and there is no easy detours. We definitely don't want to do nighttime because you guys won't get any sleep for a year. And it's very, very expensive. It's expensive to do nighttime. And so we've kind of already talked to them, and part of their benefit to packaging it is pulling the Band-Aid off. You know, you just got a mess, and you got it a mess for the 2-year construction of the 2 construction cycles, because this will take 2 construction cycles. That's how complex the work is and how much work there is to do. Rather than doing Yarmouth over 2 years and then turning around and doing Main Street over 2 years, and then it's 4 years. So that's one of the benefits of doing that. That would be in that bid book. One other things about the sheriff. Yes, thank you. Well, one of the things I wanted to say is you are free to contact the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office and to complain. And you may do that as many times as you feel inclined to do. I've done it before for my road. And so getting those complaints does help them decide where to put deputies. We have asked them to sit in specific areas, problem areas before. And they also produce a report for us monthly, and that's in our packet. And I think we're starting to publish it on our website so that you can see how many traffic stops they're actually making in the town of Gray. They do make a significant amount of them. They have a lot of other things going on too, burglaries, those kind of calls. Yeah, I don't know. It's challenging because there's no shoulder and they have to be able to pull people over safely. Okay, just a second. And there was one other thing I was going to say, and now I've lost my train of thought with the enforcement. That's okay. I'll go ahead and go with Dan. And maybe it'll come back. I think he has to do it. Go ahead, Dan, if you want to unmute yourself. You're still muted.
Hey, Sandy. I just wanted to back you up on that because we go to multiple meetings with MDOT. We go to multiple meetings we talk to the sheriff's department. We talk to people and we give them the feedback that you're giving us. But it really makes an impact on them when they start to get that feedback from different angles. It's kind of easy for them to put us in a box and say, well, that's the council's point of view. It's not representative of the town. However, they want to sort of avoid taking responsibility for the work that they need to do. So I just want to, sort of back Sandy up on that one. It really does help a lot if you call either the sheriff's department on their business line or you call MDOT and you file these complaints. It would be a big help to us and to further the success of the project. Thanks.
Yes, and I have actually been on the record in a public meeting saying that they should put signage up at the Auburn exit to let all the trucks know when they start ripping up Main Street, and tell them to seek alternative routes, which they probably would do. And if they accidentally left those signs, that'd be fine with me too.
That'd be okay.
It's kind of a 2-part question that piggybacks. So the first question is how will the road being torn up for 2 construction cycles affect things such as plowing and things like that? And the second question is, I actually work for a tire center and they have construction going on in Gorham, and we see probably 5 to 6 cars a day coming in from there with rocks in the tires and things, and they're fighting the town to get reimbursed for that. How does that affect our project as far as the same issues?
Yeah, so I guess the first part of your question, typically, the contractor would be required to get to a certain point in their construction by a specific date in the fall. So there are DOT dates in terms of when you can pave and the last date you can pave and that type of thing. So that would be ideally, you would end up with a situation where you would get at least a portion of the project back to binder pavement, the first layer of pavement. You end up putting 2 layers of pavement down on these projects so that you could plow it over the wintertime and it wouldn't remain gravel or turn into a mud pit. Because first of all, that wouldn't be a good thing for the quality, overall long-term quality of the project anyway, because it turns what you just built into muck again. So they would have to, and this is where the contractors come into play in terms of how best to phase and do these projects. How much do they think they can get done in a certain period of time? And they'll just open up that portion of road and do that and get it back to at least binder pavement by the end of the construction season, so it can be plowed and maintained over the winter. So it's really going to be a construction phasing issue. And the contractors are really the ones that are best to identify that. I guess relative to vehicle damage and things in construction sites, those issues happen all the time when you have to allow traffic to run through a construction site. I may be wrong on this, but my understanding is that if a vehicle or a driver has damage happen to their vehicle when they are going through a construction site, it goes back to the contractor. It doesn't go to the town or to the DOT. It's actually a contractor issue. That's my understanding, and that's how I've seen it dealt with on other projects, but I'm not sure if that's
Yeah, I think that the important thing to remember is because it's such a large project, it involves so much space and both roads, that the DOT has already told us that we're going to have some pretty robust, long conversations leading up to when they actually start construction, so that, between the bids and the first part, bidding it out and then working with that contractor, so that we're all very in agreement and understand what's going to happen when and what kind of traffic management is done, because it's going to be a significant amount of traffic management, and traffic management is a huge chunk of the budget because you have to have flaggers and routing and signs and all that. So that whole piece will have to definitely be worked out, and I can guarantee we will be having many more public forums between now. I won't, but Krista and Dan will. Many more. We've got to get the plans finalized, so there'll probably be one with the final plans, the combined plans that will go into the application. There'll be one after the application to discuss whether we get the application or we don't. And then if let's all hope we get the grant, that would be awesome. Then that will really open the door for us to start the conversation. The DOT will be taking the lead to reach out to you to do the easement work, because all of that has to be done before construction. And that's another reason why there's another delay, because you can't start any of the construction until we get all that done too. But there'll be plenty of conversations about that to make sure. The other thing is, the council talking to residents about what's you're going to lose some trees and some shrubs and some other things. So all of that stuff has to be worked out too. And I've had that issue before when the last time they did paving on our Route 26. They redid my driveway, but they forgot to do the skirt parts. And Will is correct. They just routed us straight to the Shaw Brothers, who happened to be the contractor on that, and they're the ones who came and resolved it. So issues generally go to the contractor.
Now, will that be written in there? So that if there is issues, we can go to the contractor and they're aware that they are responsible?
I think you would probably still report it to us, and then we would probably relay it to them, but I'm not 100% sure. But we would definitely, through our conversations with, I think I'm not speaking out of school for Krista, the council, and we did this with the short shaker. We want residents to understand that we're working on this together, and that if you have a problem, then you need to just come to us. Just come tell us, and we'll do what we can to resolve the problem. It may not be us specifically, but we would be the conduit for that conversation, likely. Are there any other questions? Oh, Dan again. She's been monitoring the chat. So Dan, go ahead.
Thanks, Sandy. Yeah, as frustrating as the delays and the changes are, and maybe even more so as frustrating as all the uncertainty is, all the councils, while I've been on the council, that have been working to try and figure out the best way to do this, feel really strongly that we want the people who live on that stretch of road or these stretches of road to be made whole. Are we going to make all the improvements that we would like to make? Probably not. But the end result, the end product will be a stark improvement over what exists for you there now. Whether it's the ditches, whether it's the curbing, whether it's even what feels like a small 3-foot paved shoulder, the fixing the ends of your driveway, the replacing of plants that we may have to disturb. The council is committed to making sure that those things get done. And, you know, there is a certain amount of, I suppose, trust involved in that right now. None of those things are in the plan at this stage, but all of those details will get worked out before the construction begins. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that one more time that the DOT was supposed to fix this road in 1970. And they haven't, and they're not gonna. And we've asked them, you know, if we weren't doing the Yarmouth Road project ourselves, when would this come up? And they're basically like, it's not even on their radar. So we understand how frustrating it is. And it's been I've lived here for 32 years. I've seen the mess for 32 years. So, and we've always, you know, driven through here and said, when are they going to fix this? When are they going to fix it? It has been long. It's been a very detailed and frustrating at times, but we have a plan, and I'm actually kind of excited. It's a little ways off, but the fact that we have a plan and that we are engaged with the DOT and we're going to be applying for funding is a lot closer than we were the last 32 years. So, any final things?
So I'm just kind of curious, what are we looking at for compensation? Because there is the rot line there. So you're taking beyond that. So, you know, we're losing the end of our property, you know, not only land, but driveway. We're losing the buffer of the trees and the bushes between us and the road. There's a lot of us that are going to be affected. The south side doesn't have as much frontage as some of the north side properties. So is that even a factor?
Actually, that's all part of that easement work. And so depending on whether we do the grant or we end up breaking it apart, either the DOT will be handling the easement work or we will. And it will be an individual conversation for every property owner as far as that. And just to remind people, the right of way or the easement that we're looking for doesn't mean that we're going to have anything all the way to the end. What that allows the construction to do is potentially there might be something under the ground, but it also gives them the space, and now it's happening to me. It also gives them the space to be on your property to do maintenance on that work. So just because there's a right of way that goes all the way doesn't mean that your lawn, you know, your lawn's going to disappear and there's going to be road right up to that line. That's not the case. If you look at his drawings, you can see the blue line is well beyond that. And a lot of that is there to allow for that maintenance. If they need to come and replace the culvert, they might need to be on your property to do that. So that's just one clarification on the right of way.
But that would, and if it's the grant, it will have to be the federal process, that environmental NEPA.
National Environmental Policy Act.
Yeah, so that would go through that process and they would be reaching out to you to. Yeah, we can just read that and just talk loudly. As far as like, as Dan said, just a minute ago, if you're losing trees or shrubs, obviously we're not gonna do a one-to-one replacement probably, but we would work with individual property owners to see what makes sense. So if you looked at Short Shaker Road, and actually on Short Shaker Road, there were more residents were hoping we would take their trees than we actually took trees, because there's quite a few very large trees that are on their way out. So they were like, oh, are you gonna come take my tree? And I was like, no, that one doesn't have to come down. But for the ones that we took down, what we did was we actually, that one is part of the canopy study already. So we hired an arborist to come and take a look at where the trees, where it was better for us to plant new trees to make a full canopy to shade the area better. So a person might have lost a tree and not gotten a tree, or somebody might have lost 2 trees and got 1 tree, or someone may have lost a tree and got a tree. So it really is an individual conversation, but as Dan said, we did it pretty successfully with the Short Shaker Road, and we would anticipate we take the same process with you guys.
And it was very successful.
Yes, yeah, it worked out very well. And another example there is we had an outflow pipe that went underneath someone's driveway. And so we could have torn it up and just patched their driveway, but we didn't feel that was appropriate. We replaced the entire driveway.
Oh, we had one that went under someone's house.
Someone's house and garage, right? Yeah. So,
We left the house.
yeah, we left the house. Any other?
Just one other thing on the right of way. So typically right of way is equal on both sides of, say, the center line of the road. So we've gone 30 feet out on either side. One of the reasons we're doing that on the north side is to allow the town the potential in the future to add a sidewalk up the north side of the road without having to go back and go through this whole process all over again. So that is one of the reasons why we are proposing that 30 foot from the center line on the north side, even though there currently is not a sidewalk proposed on that side of the road. So.
One more?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh, let me.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
So you had said that potentially there'd be a second phase in adding the sidewalks on the north side and that part of it. My question is this, how long did it take us to incur the money that you've been putting away? And how long would it take before we're looking at starting a second phase for that?
It's really hard to answer. Since we're not even going to do the construction until 2028, and then it would be a matter of, again, like you said, securing the funding up front, which we generally try to do. So I'm not going to lie to you, it'd probably be a while. That's just a fact. One of the nice things about being able to get Main Street in Yarmouth done, and you guys think it's been a long time, it's been a really long time for staff, because the amount of work that you're seeing presented to you, there's like 10, 100 times of that happening behind the scenes. And what we're hopeful for is that will allow us to free our staff up to do more planning work, to find out what we're going to do next. What's next? We've been focused on Yarmouth Road and Main Street for many, many years now. And we're just really grateful to be to the point where we might have some finalized plans.
How long did it take to get to this point?
For this,
Sandy.
4 years.
So redirected.
The South TIF, probably, we've been probably working on this for about 4 years, yeah.
That's including funding.
Yeah, luckily for this project, the Route 100 South TIF was originally designated for another project that never occurred. And so that money had already been pooling for a certain period of time. We do have a new village TIF, which we put into place a few years back, and that has a lot broader definition assigned to it, that we can use it more broadly throughout the town. So that TIF is starting to accumulate now on its own. We've used some of that TIF money to do some of the planning. So there are, that TIF is active and it's only in its 3rd year, and it goes 30 years. So there's another pool starting. Dan, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, another reason for the right of way and one of the things that affects the timing. We had a multi-unit project 2 years ago that wanted to build up on Weeks Hill. It was an open space project. It would have been almost like a new little side street. It would have been not completely hidden, but it would have been a nice project. The planning board didn't okay the project because we couldn't build a sidewalk from that point on the north side of Yarmouth Road down to Brown Street because there is no right of way. Had we had the right of way in place at that time, the developer was willing to build that sidewalk for us. So we need to get ourselves in a position where we can take advantage of some of those kinds of opportunities because the developer, when they're coming in, is willing to do some of those kinds of things as part of a project. And anytime we can get that to happen, that just saves us tax money. So who knows how long it will actually take to get a sidewalk up there? I certainly can't make any promises, but having that right of way, having all that preliminary work done, certainly improves our chances of luring back a developer like that to build a project and build some of that sidewalk for us. Thank you.
I completely forgot about that. That's true. That would be even better because it's not tax money. Any other final questions? I want to thank you guys for coming out. Appreciate it. And for those that are online, if you guys have any other questions, then please feel free to reach out. I think that next phase, Doug, I think you're probably going to still try to reach out to the ones that you haven't spoken to. But if you have any specific questions, and there are new plans up on the wall, so for anyone who wasn't here tonight or wants to, you can come in town office and find your property on there. And as Doug said, there's a little more detail there for your specific property. We will keep you updated. So our goal is the MOU is next. So you'll hear or see more about that. And then if we can come to an agreement, the next step will be finalizing plans, hopefully by the year end, and then in the spring going for the money. So we'll keep you appraised. Thank you very much. When would the next update be? Probably the MOU is the next step. And so we're waiting for the DOT to get back to us on ours. And then the lawyers, it's a memorandum of understanding. So it's a legal agreement between the DOT and us. So we've kind of listed the things that we feel need to be in there for us. They got to do the same on their side. And then we're going to have, conversations about it. Thank you. Good night.
So much more from the center. Okay. Center line is okay. I have 2 more questions for you. Do you guys know who to contact as far as the main DOT to try to get the driveway situation resolved?